And this is a lifter from the 5.7. And what I proposed is that because they raised the camshaft, now normally the cam sits right about here, as you see on a regular engine. Because they raised the cam and they put this main oil feed, this is a tube that runs front to back between the reciprocating assembly and the camshaft. Because they put this tube here, oil that's slung off the reciprocating assembly that normally finds its way to the lifters, to the bottom of the lifters, to the surface between the cam and the lifter. A lot of it is obstructed by this passage and the distance, the increased distance between. Right? Now the reason they did this was to improve the valve train geometry, so that instead of having to have those mousetrap rockers like they have, like say, on the 426 Hemi, so that they can have smaller, lighter, more direct access valve train, they raised the camshaft and they flattened out the angle on the lifters. This was supposedly a recommendation made by a very famous Chrysler engineer who had a lot to do with the development of the 426 Hemi, and this was his suggestion to make this engine superior. And in theory it works. Yes, this thing has a much better valve train geometry, there's no question about it. But they threw the baby out with the bathwater. They missed very simple things. Also on that last video, I proposed that after studying, I have a box of these things, 20, 30 lifters, right? I determined that there's insufficient oiling to the body of the lifter. You could tell by these scuff marks. There's a scuff mark that will always be on one side, and there's like, well, this one doesn't really have it, but some of them, a lot of them have like a tarnishy film on the flip side. So you've got scuff on one side, tarnish on the other. And what that's telling me is that this lifter body isn't being completely surrounded by oil. It's kind of, when the engine is sitting there, running, it's not being completely drained.
Going to cause your valve to open. So if you have an issue with your needle bearings and this is not in the correct positioning, or if your cam starts to become flattened, it is eventually just going to result in the fact that your valves are not going to be able to open properly. So these are both cam in block engine designs, meaning the cam is in the block. This is a regular Chevy 350 and this is a Hemi. So as you can see on the Chevy 350, it's built at a 90-degree angle. So your lifters are going to go here and your cam is here. By nature, any oil moving through your lifters is going to gravitate towards your cam and help lubricate it. Now, if you take a look at the Hemi engine, you can see that the angle at which the lifters are and where the cam goes does not provide any type of extra oiling, simply because of the design of the engine block.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Shane O. Sorry for the weather and everything else. I just got gas, yada, yada, yada. So I figured I'd make a quick video on, wow, a design flaw in the Hemi. Now, the videos that you've seen are some of the videos that are, there's not a plume of them out there because a lot of people didn't know the reason for the problems that they have throughout all gens, not just Gen 3, but all gens, due to the block design. Now, I looked at a lot of videos. I saw that, the most common thing is the lifters are eating the cams. Lifter failure. Of course, we have, valve seat drops are a big one throughout the years. That's, up and down with that one. I don't know. I mean, it could happen, yada, yada, yada. As far as I know, as the valve seat is if you overheat the Hemi, way too much, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, eventually they just drop out. But anyway, passing that, I think the bigger issue is, because it's not, it's on, it's on YouTube, but it's not the biggest issue with the engine. The engine design, because I was really curious. I'm like, why the heck is this, why is the Hemi, having this issue? And it's not everybody has this issue. If you baby it, you take care of the oil, you use additives, you don't idle for hours and stuff like that, and you got a heavy foot and you're racing the living piss out of them. They go to distance or they don't go to distance. There's people who have had problems early and there's people who have problems later. But when you have Gen like 3 generations of the Hemi engine having this issue, there is a design flaw at that point. There is a design flaw. And from what I've seen from these videos, it makes perfect sense. You know, diehard Dodge fans, you know, I'm driving a Dodge, but I'm a car guy, you know, like I like Ford, I like certain Chevys, yada, yada, yada. But the flaw is real. Like that's what it is. It makes perfect sense that when you have a lifter, you know, I really looked at the block. I'm like, why is there, they have literally like an oil bar, like channel, like a bar that supposedly runs oil back and forth throughout the block. But it's like blocking, like they raise the cam shaft location. I understand for the valve train, so they have shorter push rods. Everything's a little bit more even, yada yada. I understand the method to the madness, but it's like you put that oil channel bar at that point in there, and then like you got the crank, and it's just at a location where it's not going to get that oil, the benefit of that oil where it needs to go. You don't hear these problems like, you don't hear these problems like on any older Dodge engine, like a 5.9 liter. Now what sucks is that, like I told my brother, I'm like, I would rather go with a 5.9 because they have tons of aftermarket for it. It's based on an old school design, and you never hear any problems about lifters and shit. But on any old pushrod, from Ford to Chevy to Dodge, you never hear any issues. But on this engine, you hear issues, and you scratch your head like, why? Is it the lifters? Is it the type of lifters they're using? No, it can't be. No matter what brand lifters you put in there, no matter what you do, as far as just replacing the main components, it has a design flaw in the block. Now again, you might have had good experiences. You might have put in like 200,000 plus miles on your Hemi. Maybe you took care of it and you didn't drive it hard and yada yada yada. It is a design flaw, in my opinion, of the actual block. Now, can you do something about it? It's possible. It's possible that you can, if you're building a Hemi or something, that you can do something about it as far as getting more oil to the cam, to the lifters. Maybe they have these cam covers I've seen. They're so hard to find, but I've seen them where they have like these little channels like on top of the cam that like literally shoot oil down over. I've seen them like a couple engines, but again, it's like I don't even know what they're called. I ran into it on accident. But they like shoot oil, like there's like a line like underneath the cam cover, on top of it, like inside up top, like running across, and it like shoots oil down. Something like like oil cooling jets, like the 5.0 used to have or whatever. But they took them out because I don't think you need them, but again, it was like some type of horsepower loss or gain or something like that when it came to those oil cooling jets. But I'm just saying that would be a beneficial thing if you can, no matter which way you go, to get more oil to those lifters, because it makes perfect sense if you have a lifter this way, like at a 90-degree angle, like on pretty much mostly every pushrod engine that's been made and stuff like that, where the cam location is, if you have a lifter going down, the oil, that's where the oil is going to travel. You're running your engine, it's going to spew oil, but your oil pump is also moving oil through the block and to your heads, and you gotta. So it would make sense that oil, to get to a lifter that's been placed right there, the oil needs to travel down. Now as you've seen in the video, the lifter, and Uncle Tony's Garage actually does a test. Go to his channel, and he does an oil test. See the video. And he pours oil on the lifters, and you can see the difference just because of the angle of the lifter. So if the lifter is, like, here's a normal lifter. Like a normal, sorry, man, I hate this camera, so I'm gonna angle it right. Angle. So if you have a lifter like this, obviously, and the cam is lowered to the crank with no interruptions between the crank, nothing obscuring the crank from the camshaft from the crank. Hello, camshaft. Like, oil is going to, get to everything. Now, if you raise the cam up and then there's a bar running underneath it, and then you have the lifters, like, they're like this. They're not even like this no more. They literally cranked it. Like, that's a big difference. It's not even like, it was right here, now it's just like right here. They went from like this to like this. Now it's like, it's almost flat. it's like on a slight angle or whatever. Like, that's kind of like where the Hemi's lifters are at. So it went from like that to like that. So now oil is not, it's not really draining down that great to get to the lifter. The gravity's not doing a great job at this point. And the cam is really high up where it's like it's bulging out of the top of the Hemi, of the block. You can see the round shape where the cam sits, and I'm just like, I understand why they did it, to make the valve train easier and better and yada yada from the older Hemi, but they made another issue doing it. And what's really funny to me is that they didn't change the block. They didn't do nothing about it. Like, it's like, people are like, oh, it's the MDS system, blah 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 blah. It has, like, seriously, it's a block design. The block design is flawed. Either it's going to go the distance or you're going to have this issue, and then you have to do certain things for it not to have that issue, just to get the mileage that you want out of it. But there is to me, it's a horrible design to try to make something else better. Now, my opinion, I looked at the bottom end build of a 4.7. They use like 28 bolts to hold that crank into place. Like, that thing's in there. I just like the whole design better. Besides, some people complain about, time and chain and this and this and that. In my opinion, as far as, this Hemi, the 5.7, I think the 4.7 is superior in design. Some people are like, well, rocker arms might pop off and this and this. That's understandable. I never had that issue in my life, but I've had plenty of I've had like 3 4.7s. Never had that problem. Good oil, yada yada yada, and then you change out, what you need to change out, and the miles get to a certain point. I put all new lifters slash lashers and rocker arms in my truck. Really easy to get to. Pop them out, pop them in, yada yada yada. Now, there's a guy that sells clips for this engine. It makes sure they sit right on top of the lifters, and again, slash lashers, and it's like a clip, and it prevents any type of rocker arm from popping off. So, but I've never had that problem or anything like that. But it's usually when a lifter gets stuck and yada yada yada, mileage, blah blah blah, maybe lack of oil changes, whatever the situation is. But I still think it's a superior design. So I think what's going to go on with my truck is that I'm going to go to a 08 to 2011 or 2010 2011 4.7. They improved the head design, everything else, and with a tuned, if you have a tune, maybe a cold air intake, maybe some type of exhaust, you can actually get the power from a newer 4.7 as far as pretty close or almost exact torque and horsepower as a first gen Hemi. That's pretty good. Now, the sad part is that they don't make a lot of aftermarket for the 4.7. And now I'm surprised seeing both builds of a 5.7 and the problems with that, where the cam position is. But I looked at the 4.7 build. I'm like, why didn't Dodge, building this new 5.7, just take the 4.7 and made it a 5.7 in a lot of ways? Like, they could have made with like dual overhead cams. I can promise you, if the 5.7 was a dual overhead cam, designed with time and chain, the whole nine, it would have been it would be a amazing engine. You wouldn't see lifters getting eaten up and all this other BS. That's something they desperately need for the new. Instead of ditching all V8s, that's what they should have did. They could have added variable valve time. They could have made their own version of the 5.0, the Ford's 5.0, but do it in a Hemi way. It would be a beast of an engine. It really would. If they just updated it, if they just kept with that, kept with that DNA. If they, the 4.7. You look at a full build of a 4.7, especially the lower end, and I just wish that Dodge did more with it. Like the heads, that's what it really suffers from. Is that it's just it's a truck engine, yada yada yada. But god darn, like they could have. The engine has so much potential. The block is good for well over 700 horsepower. So I wish that Dodge just did more for the 4.7, and everybody focuses so much on the 5.7 because with the Hemi name, and it's like you find out like the block is flawed, and it's just flawed. Now you can argue and get mad and all this other crap, but it doesn't stop the problem. It doesn't make it go away. You can sit there all day and say, I've never had a problem. I've had 180,000 miles on my Hemi. I never had an issue. That's good. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm not saying it's obviously if it was for every motor and exactly every motor did it. But again, it's also how you treat it. But it is a design flaw. That's why you see tons and thousands of videos of people just the famous Hemi tick and eating up freaking lifters and bent rods and or again bent push rods. These are the issues. These are the issues. So that's what I'm going to go down. I was thinking about the Hemi, but I'm like, no. Now I can get 150,000 miles. Like it's a big question mark in my head. I'm gonna have a big question mark. So why would I go to that engine? Also depending on what you want to build, but I think a newer 4.7 in here with some mild upgrades. It's sad there's not a lot out there for the 4.7, like Trick Flow, could have made some heads for this engine. That would be really beneficial, especially throughout all the years, because the newer 4.7s, they raise the compression, they have better airflow, has a better cam. It's pretty much the cam's comparable to the HO. I think it's a little bit more aggressive, but it's somewhere in that area. They used to have cams for the 4.7, but they don't have them anymore. So you might have to get them made. Sometimes they won't make it. Yeah, that's the problems you're going to run into, and you can easily get 400 horsepower, probably, I would say 475 to 400 or something like that pound-feet of torque out of a 4.7. They even have a stroker kit for it to go to a 5.2. It will never match, obviously, because of the size of the engines or whatever, but you can, if you did a forged build, twin-turboed, supercharged, yeah, you can get, I've seen the 4.7s get 700 plus horsepower. If you're going to go that far with forged pistons, and yeah, 4.7 is definitely, I would still go with a 4.7 because you can get the horsepower you're looking for, but get that, to me, it's a very reliable engine. You treat it right, even if you race it, or like I hit it, I've been idling off and on, and I've been freaking, I change out what needs to be changed out through the mileage, and it just keeps going and going and going. So, and I've seen them well over 200,000 miles, and again, the motor will keep going. They do have their ups and downs, especially age comes into play, obviously, too, rear main seal leak and crap like that. But I still think it's just a better engine overall. I'm not worried about certain things that I would be worried about on the Hemi, and that goes back to, there's no real design flaw with the 4.7, but with the 5.7, I see the design flaw. I had to find out. Those are the only couple videos there's one guy that made a video. He's like, this might be the reason why it's chewing up lifters. This might be the reason why the cams are getting chewed up. Blah 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 blah. So there's only a few videos out there that are really explaining the problem with the 5.7. So that's I see it. If you're a diehard Mopar fan and stuff, I understand. Like it's like being a Ford fan. Like I think I like Ford a little bit more than Dodge, but I'm a fan of all cars again. And again, I'm driving a Dodge. Don't get upset, is all I can say. Like, I understand you want to protect what you love and you think that your brand is the best brand in the world and nothing can touch it, and Chevy and Ford are shit. And, you know, for, again, all those Mopar guys out there, is that not, the way I see it is that there's not one car company on this planet that's perfect, okay? There's not one car company that made flawless engines throughout the years. You know, I can go all day about the, you know, I had to find out about the, like, okay, the 5.4 liter from Ford, the 2-valve and the 3-valve. Maybe I'll make another video on it, but a lot of people are like, well, that engine's shit, it blows out spark plugs, and and the other ones get stuck in the heads, and it's just a shit motor. Well, it's not, you're not thinking about what the issue was, or is it a bad motor? They're actually excellent engines. They just, I've seen those engines plenty of times with 300, 400, 500,000 miles on it. You know, it's, again, it's an overhead cam engine, time and chain. You know, you do certain things that you need to do to keep the engine going. And as far as overhead cam engines, obviously, it's you know, every 100 to 150,000 miles, you're going to want to do like a time and chain kit. Yada blah blah, and that time you can see. I don't mind that, because if you're doing that, you change the oil pump, you know, you put everything else, you know, yada yada yada. You put a new water pump in, blah blah blah. So that's a good thing. It's actually a good thing that it's overhead cam, because it makes you change the oil pump. You know, I might as well change the oil pump while I'm down there, and it's really not that bad of a job. It really is not. You don't have to tear everything apart. You don't have to take the heads off. That's a good thing. Unless you're replacing the heads. So, like on the 5.4s and the 4.6s, it's like, well, the 5.4, we'll stay with the 5.4, but the issue with those, I'm gonna clear this up. The issue, and I'll just make another video about this. The issue with the 2-valve and the 3-valve wasn't the design of the heads. Technically, it was not. The 2-valve is the only thing I think I can say was the threads were a little shorter on the 2-valve on the Ford 5.4. From factory, which is a factory issue, it was a factory fault, is that they, to them, that was the proper torque specs, was 13 pounds. But now everybody knows is that when you do the spark plugs, instead of, and they don't get stuck, but they blow out because the threads are just short, and 13 pounds doesn't cut it. So everybody over torques the new spark plugs for the 2-valve 5.4. They go from 18 to 20 pounds. Now on the 3-valve, they get stuck. Well, why are they getting stuck? Is it the head's going, I'm gonna keep you stuck in me? It was not the most great. Basically it's a spark plug design. It's a 3-piece spark plug design that Ford used. They realized this, and everybody that's changed them out went to the 2-piece spark plug design, which has no issues. So it wasn't the head, it wasn't the block, it wasn't the engine. It's just it was all about the spark plugs on both engines. Besides the 2-valve having, you know, not that much thread for the spark plug to, you know, hang on to, I guess, or which way you want to say it, to go into. But the product, you know, you actually just torque it more down and you're good to go. So technically, it's still not a head issue. It's just, you know, even the 2-valve is whatever. Everybody knows this by now. But the 3-valve is still a really good engine. It's a very simple setup, except for that, again, I'm not a fan of variable valve timing. You can get lockers for it, so that's up to you on the 3-valve. Not saying something's going to happen, but it's good, just like the time and chain, it's good to change them out. Or, you know, if you want to do a lockout, you can. But it was just, that was the issue with the engine. Wasn't the engine itself, it was the spark plug. It was just a bad, again, design flaw. Spark plug had a bad design. It was a 3-piece plug. It would literally break when you're trying to pull them out. So Ford went to a 2-piece design, which solves the issue. But it wasn't a block and head design. Okay, and so 5.4 or the 5.7 Hemi has a design flaw that can either go to distance if you treat it right, or and I'm not saying it's going to happen within 10,000 miles. Maybe someone has had that happen, but in time, that's what's happening. So it depends on how much. Again, if you're idling, not a lot of oil is getting up there. When you're racing, higher RPMs and this and that, maybe oil's not getting there. So, but if you're just driving around normal, going back and forth to work, and you've had it for years, and you're just you baby the crap out of it, you might have your engine might go to distance. But it is, no matter the situation, it's still a design flaw. And seeing those videos on it, because I was thinking about that. Like, I was thinking, like, why is the lifters failing and stuff like that? Like, what's the problem? Is Mopar making bad lifters? And I didn't personally realize that's what they did to the engine. I didn't even realize it. I was just looking at blocks and this and that, and I'm like, I didn't even notice it at first. I noticed the top part looked a little weird. Like, I was like, wait a minute. I'm thinking, I'm just in my brain, I'm thinking old school push rod. And then I saw those videos. I'm like, oh my god, I didn't even see it. So that's why I'm just showing you guys. Like, you may not have seen it, but that's what it is. So, and there's nothing you can really do about it unless you maybe do something about it. Maybe you put some holes or something, like in each channel, make your own oil system. I don't know. I don't want to deal with it. That's the way I look at it. I don't want to deal with a Hemi. And I know they call it a Hemi and stuff like that because of its chamber design. That name's like, oh, it's the whole engine. It's some type of, magical motor. And it's just a push rod V8. It's just, they call it, as far as the Hemi thing, because of the hemispherical combustion chamber. So it's domed. It's slightly domed. But, I see the flaw. So that's what it is, guys. Go to their channels. You can watch the rest of their videos. Obviously, I'll put their links or whatever down below. Yada yada yada. But I'm sticking with I don't mean to make this video too long, but I'm sticking with the 4.7, a newer 4.7. I think that I think it's a better choice as far as the way I feel about it. It's a more comfortable. Seeing the way the motor, especially the bottom end, is built, the block, how easy the drivetrain is, and this and that, and the horsepower that I'm looking for this older Durango. I'm not looking to get 500 horsepower stuff. I just, 235 is a little low in 03. So it's got the 300 pound-feet, but the 235 is just, I got about 245 maybe in this with little add-ons, but I think jumping to the newer 4.7, doing a couple, a tune, intake, exhaust, just 3 basic things that you can do. And I can get, from what I've seen, I can get the same horsepower and around the same torque. Maybe a little less, like 360 or something like that. A little less torque, but around the same torque. I'm going to say that, around the same torque. If I get the, especially if I get the 70mm throttle body, around the same torque and horsepower that a Gen 1 makes. Maybe a little bit more horsepower. What is it, 310? So I'm looking at, I've seen with just the ECU tune, they're making, actually, it might be more, because just with the ECU tune, I've seen people getting like an additional 30 horsepower out of the newer 4.7s. So maybe 340 horsepower, 300, somewhere around there. So I'm thinking with a few other extra add-ons, maybe I can hit that 350 mark, maybe possibly get 40 more horsepower, 350 horsepower, 370 pound-feet of torque out of the new 4.7, the newer or last gen 4.7s, and that's perfect for this truck. That's all I need. And I know these engines very well, so that's probably what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to skip the Hemi thing and the eagle heads and all this other crap, and just go with a nice clean 4.7. Engine harness, everything plugs up, and even the computer. But I'm most likely what I'm going to have to do with the computer is get another one, because I want to get rid of the security system in there, and I'll make another video on that, how to do that. So sorry about the, I don't make a lot of videos. I work a lot, but I will be making videos on the 5.4s. I will be making a video on the how to get rid of your security system. If you have the chip, the key, I'll make a quick video about that. But I'm gonna get out of here, guys. I'll see you guys later.